Hi, I'm Tina.
And I'm Rich.
And if there's one thing we've learned in over 20 years of marriage,
It's that some days you'll feel like killing your wife.
and some days you'll feel like killing your husband.
Welcome to Love, Marry, Kill.
Hey, Rich.
Hey, Tina.
How are you?
I'm pretty good. My mouth is on fire, but other than that, I'm good.
Why is your mouth on fire?
I ate some really spicy potato chips just a minute ago. Jimmy John's firecracker
But that's
chips.
not our snack for the episode.
No.
You just ran out to get Jimmy John's for dinner because A, it's your favorite, and B, we've recorded 3 episodes over the last 2 days. We are both a little fried, and we might get a little slap happy or something.
Maybe.
So, might be interesting.
We'll have to see.
Well, I have good news for you. Our lovely friends in Italy sent us this chest of snacks.
They sent us so many snacks.
They sent us so many really good snacks. So there's 2 left in here.
Oh, goody.
So do you want me to reach into this bag here?
Reach into your bag of snacks, your box of snacks.
Oh, these look yummy. Okay, these are Fonzies.
Fonzies.
Fonzies. Well, I don't speak Italian, so I couldn't really tell you what they are. It looks like some sort of chip.
Okay.
It's so funny that I'm looking at it like I'm trying to read it. I'm like, and then, these are another chippy snack. I've never seen anything like this in the States. It's like a circular.
Looks like an onion ring, but it's some kind of pizza flavored thing, it looks like.
So pizza in Italy is pizza.
Interesting.
Apparently. All right, well, let's try them and we'll be right back.
Okay.
What did you think?
I liked them both. They were really good.
Really good.
The pizza, the Anello pizza. It looks like an onion ring, but it's sort of like
It looks like a spaghetti-o.
Yeah, it looks like a spaghetti-o.
It looks like
it's a circle.
Big. I think if you were like a baby might like them because it's like it'd melt in your mouth. But Samantha, you did a great job picking out the snacks. That was so fun. We loved it.
Yeah.
And the other snack.
The Fonzies.
The Fonzies. It's like a white Cheeto. And it's like the other Cheetos, the Cheetos weren't the consistency of a Cheeto, but the Fonzies are the consistency of a Cheeto.
Yeah.
It's like a white cheddar Cheeto. Delicious. Yeah. I would give the Fonzies a 10 because, I love a cheese flavored snack. Mm-hmm. And I would give the spaghetti-o things probably a 8.5.
Okay, I'm going to give the Fonzies a 7. I didn't like them quite as much as the other things. The Anello pizza, though, I really liked a lot. I'm going to give that a 9.
Interesting. And I was going to lie to you, but
there is another Kinder Joy.
Put another Kinder
Joy.
I
knew it.
But I know you want me to have it because you love me. And I'm adorable.
It is true that I do love you. And you are adorable.
So then you're leaving the country. You're going to freaking Paris
I know.
Tomorrow.
I hope the Kinder Joy doesn't disappear tomorrow when I leave.
Well, I'm pretty sure you can get one at the airport. You'll be fine. I don't feel bad for you. You're going to the Olympics. You're going to Paris. You're going to be okay. You're going to get snacks.
Okay.
They're going to feed you.
Fine. Take the Kinder Joy.
Whenever he travels, he sends me pictures of these, Michelin star type restaurants and dinners, and I'm like at home eating a crust of bread.
Fine.
So,
if you're going to guilt me over it, then have the Kinder Joy. Okay. It's all yours.
Thank you so much again to our friends Sam and Tim. That was just a wonderful surprise. We have the best listeners, but you guys went above and beyond. Thank you so much. Grazie.
Wow, I didn't know you spoke Italian.
I don't.
Well, should we finish off this Karen Reed case?
We really should. Yes.
I'm ready.
When I started writing it, I was like, it's going to be one part. It'll be kind of long. It'll be one. Nope. No,
there's a lot to talk about here, and I have a feeling this might be a long episode.
It might, so hang in there with us. We'll try to get through it and make it as interesting and entertaining as possible. Could you maybe summarize parts 1 and 2 quickly? I'm not sure people need a ton of summary, but I didn't write anything, so I'm going to put you on the spot, and we haven't done this in a while.
Yeah, I think a very brief summary. So John O'Keefe, who was a police officer.
Boston police officer, 46 years old.
And he was found dead. There was a blizzard, a snowstorm. This was in what year? 2022?
Exactly.
In January. He and his girlfriend, Karen Reed, had gone out with a bunch of other people to a bar. They drank a lot. They went to someone else's house. The Alberts is the last name.
Yeah, Brian and Nicole Albert.
Brian and Nicole Albert.
Who lived just, 5 minutes away from the bar.
And they went to their house. Karen dropped John off. He was going to go to the after party, and then she was going to go back to John's house.
The story's been a little inconsistent.
Right. She's told a few different stories, but the bottom line is he ended up dead in the snow in front of the house, and his body was discovered the next morning very early by Karen and Jennifer McCabe, who is Karen's friend, or I can't remember the relationship.
She's Karen's
there.
friend, but Jennifer McCabe, her sister, is Nicole Albert, who is married to Brian. Brian and Nicole own the house that John was found at.
Okay, right. So when Karen hadn't heard from John, she called him like dozens of times overnight.
Yeah.
Never got a hold of him. So she and Jennifer went looking for him, and they found his body in the snow.
And there's two theories. One theory is that Karen, in her drunken state, she and John had been fighting, that she might have hit him angrily after a fight when he got out of the car. And the other theory is that Brian Albert, another man named Brian Higgins, and Brian Albert's nephew, Colin Albert, might have beaten John and put him out in the snow to die.
Right, but all the people at the after party said that he didn't come into the house. They never saw him.
And we're not sure.
And Karen was arrested like 2 days after the murder for, I think it was initially involuntary manslaughter, and then later they upped it to second-degree murder. And
a couple of other crimes,
Yeah, and today we're going to talk about her trial, which just ended recently.
Yes. As I was researching the case, something that I kept wondering over and over is, where was his body found?
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, Karen dropped him off. She must have dropped him off by the driveway, and his body would be, somewhere between the driveway and the front door, and people were going in and out of the house. And how did no one find this poor man?
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the pictures, there's a flagpole that's kind of, on the edge of their property towards the road.
On the far end, away from the driveway.
Yeah, and I had said a couple of episodes ago that it was a couple of 100 feet away, but you actually found it on Google Earth.
Google Maps, yeah. You can measure distance on Google Maps. And so like the distance from the front door or the front of the garage to the flagpole is probably about 120 feet, something like that. So fairly far. And if you were walking out of the driveway or backing out of the driveway, you probably wouldn't see something that was, if his body was way over by the flagpole, I can see how you wouldn't notice it.
Yeah, the street wasn't lit, and it was dark out, and it was snowy.
Yeah.
At times, the snow and the wind were very strong and heavy, so it was probably very hard to see.
Right, but not for Karen Reed, who apparently saw his body right away when they pulled up in the morning, when it was still dark out.
Yes, true. So the trial was set to begin on March 12th, 2024. Judge Beverly Canone, with 15 years of experience on the bench, presided over the high-profile case. Judge Canone had previously denied the defense's request to delay the trial, but in February she granted a 1-month delay due to the amount of discovery. Like, just trying to write a podcast, there's so much information, so I can't imagine either of the attorneys trying to wade through this information. And I think the DA was mostly on his own, and that's just insurmountable amount of work. The prosecution's request for a gag order to protect witnesses from being harassed was struck down by the judge in the case, which is kind of surprising, knowing everything about Turtle Boy and how he was kind of harassing witnesses. In November 2023, Karen Reed won an appeal from the Massachusetts Supreme Court to gain access to the cell phone records of Jen McCabe, and that really did change the trajectory of the defense. It took 5 days to seat the 17-person jury. There were 12 jurors and 5 alternates, 10 of those people being women, and they were selected from more than 500 potential jurors. So you can imagine if you're from the area and you ask them, have you heard about this case? And everyone's like, yep.
Right.
So The trial happened around the same time as Donald Trump's trial in New York,
Okay.
and it actually took more time to seat the jury in
Oh, wow.
Karen Reed's case, which I thought was kind of
That's pretty
interesting.
surprising.
The trial actually began on April 21st, 2024. The burden of proof was on the state, and they knew it would be a tough case to prosecute with a largely circumstantial case. To get a verdict of second-degree murder, they had to prove there was intent and malice of forethought to kill John O'Keefe. Karen's defense wanted Judge Canone to recuse herself from the case, claiming that she was related to the McCabe's.
Really?
Another person related, yeah, which is why some people refer to her as Auntie Bev. I believe Turtle Boy found that connection and was something about one of Jennifer McCabe's relatives and a cottage. I don't really have any more information than that. But
Okay.
the judge said, quote, "I know very well the importance of a fair and impartial judge, and I know full well how to follow my oath and comply with my ethical obligations." So she refused to recuse herself.
Okay.
Protesters, largely organized and encouraged by Turtle Boy, lined the streets surrounding the courthouse in support of Karen Reed, wearing pink or Free Karen t-shirts in a carnival-like atmosphere.
Free Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed!
Well, we're not putting up with that. We're right here today, Jim McDermott, and we're not going to be quiet. We here. We got it.
Does sound pretty carnival-like.
Some of the witnesses were booed, and I think John O'Keefe's family was booed,
Oh,
too.
that's not cool.
Judge Canone banned wearing pink in the courtroom and ruled that supporters must maintain a 200 feet buffer zone from the courthouse. Karen Reed supporters filed a lawsuit stating that their First Amendment rights were being violated. The case went to the state Supreme Court, where they upheld Judge Canone's ruling to maintain a buffer zone to protect witnesses and family members. That's kind of nuts, isn't it? Like, these supporters really support Karen Reed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a few people, it was hundreds. A smaller number of protesters showed support for John O'Keefe, wearing buttons that said "Justice for JJ" and holding signs that said "Justice for Officer O'Keefe," while yelling "Cop Killer" at Karen Reed. From the beginning, Karen has had strong public support. Crowdfunding has raised almost $400,000 towards her legal defense. About a dozen of Karen's family members showed up in court to support her. Why do you think Karen has so much public support?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, I think people love a good story that has scandal and corruption, and they like to fight against that. But I guess I'm not sure really why this specific case has captured so much attention.
It is surprising, too, because a police officer died. And normally when a police officer dies, people are...
Public rally around the police officer.
Yeah. Well, Karen supporters have said that they see her in themselves, a woman against an entire bureaucracy. They want to help her get through it and beat the system. The Boston Police Department and Massachusetts State Police have had numerous scandals in recent history, and many residents are afraid that police are just corrupt and not above framing a citizen. The scandals in the Boston Police Department include falsifying time records to be paid overtime. Patrick Rose, a former police officer, was charged with multiple counts of child sexual abuse. It was later revealed that the department had allowed him to continue working despite earlier accusations. Reports of widespread corruption, including bribery, drug trafficking, and other forms of misconduct, have plagued the department over the years. The Boston Police Department has faced criticism for its handling of racism and discrimination within the force, as well as accusations of racial profiling and excessive use of force against minority communities. The state police have been plagued with similar scandals. The Massachusetts governor has even weighed in on the case. Governor Maura Healey strongly criticized State Trooper Michael Proctor for his conduct in the Karen Reed case, calling it terrible and completely unprofessional. She said his behavior undermined the dignity and integrity of law enforcement. She expressed disgust at Proctor's vulgar and inappropriate text messages about Karen Reed, but refrained from further comments on the trial since it is ongoing.
Yeah,
it was ongoing.
Yeah, I think that his comments, which we talked about on the last episode, were so disgusting and so unprofessional that I can I could see how that would be a big reason why people would be supporting Karen Reed in this case. Just hearing his comments, it's like,
I think that's part of it too. There was an issue with the courtroom early on. The defense claimed that the sightlines of the jurors to see the witnesses were obstructed. So this courtroom is 100 years old, and they've never had an issue, but Alan Jackson comes into town, and he's like, this isn't okay. And he's right. I mean, the jurors should be able to see the witnesses. So they had to change courtrooms, and the courtroom that they moved to was very small. It only held about 60 people, and only 10 media were allowed into the courtroom each day, and only a handful of observers at a time other than the family members.
Wow. Was it televised live? I know it was recorded,
televised.
But okay, that's good.
On day 4 of the trial, the jury took a field trip to the Alberts' house. Karen Reed was represented by Alan Jackson and David Yannetti. Mr. Jackson, a former prosecutor, is a well-known attorney based in Los Angeles who has represented high-profile clients such as Kevin Spacey, Nissan Joaquin Garcia, the leader of the Mexico-based megachurch La Luz del Mundo, who faced sex crime charges, a Saudi prince accused of rape, and several athletes charged with domestic violence. So he's kind of represented some shady people.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that Karen Reed is shady.
Yeah, that's what defense attorneys do, though.
He was the prosecutor in the Phil Spector case way back when.
Okay.
Do you remember that case?
Oh, of course.
All of the witnesses in the first 5 days of the trial were first responders, 14 in total. The judge allowed a third-party culprit defense, meaning the defense is allowed to introduce another possible suspect, specifically in this case, someone else at the Albert house, Brian Albert, Colin Albert, and Brian Higgins, who we've talked about several times.
The prosecution called over 60 witnesses during the 8-week trial, presenting 200 exhibits and 600 pieces of evidence.
That's a lot of evidence.
It is a lot.
I need to tell you guys about a spreadsheet that I found on Reddit. This amazing user called Sleuthy Goosey. I think she might have a YouTube channel too, but she has broken down the case by the timeline, the evidence, the exhibits, the pictures. I think I saw almost all of the 600 pictures, and we will put that link in our show notes. It's one of the top 5 sources.
Okay.
But check that out because it's
amazing. Really, I took a look at it earlier, and it is really amazing. It's just a big spreadsheet, but it's got links to everything you could ever want to know about the trial.
It's amazing.
The prosecution was criticized for the slow pace of their case and the number of superfluous witnesses. The judge and jurors were visibly frustrated. Legal experts were confused by the order of witnesses and did not think that they were winning over the jury or proving their case beyond a reasonable doubt. 3 of the 5 EMTs testified that they heard Karen Reed say, "I hit him." Several people said that Karen confessed.
Now, after the fire department arrived and they sort of take over resuscitative efforts with regard to Mr. O'Keefe, what, if any, observations did you make of Ms. Reed and what she was doing or saying at that?
Ms. Reed was visibly upset. She kept saying, this is all my fault. This is my fault. I did this.
As I was ventilating, I was able to ask, did anybody see anything? What happened? And there was one individual that replied several times, I hit him. I hit him.
You indicated that the defendant said, I hit him. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's something that she said once or more than
3 times. I hit him. I hit him. I hit him. Earlier, it was could I, did I. When she spoke to the paramedic, it was crystal clear. I hit him.
That last witness was Jennifer McCabe, who we will hear more from in a little bit.
Brian Albert testified that he traded in his cell phone for a new one the day before a court order was issued to preserve it. He said that he needed an upgrade. He claimed that he did not know all of the data on that phone would be factory reset and destroyed. Julie Nagel, a friend of Brian Albert Jr., testified that she saw what she called a black blob 5 or 6 feet in length near the flagpole when she left the party around 1:45 a.m., but admitted she was intoxicated and wasn't sure what she saw. She said the blob was, quote, close to the street but in their lawn, kind of in front of the flagpole, unquote. This was the first time she had told anyone about what she saw on the night of January 29th. She testified that she did not believe the blob to be a body at the time. If she had known, she would have called 911, she said.
This points again to the shoddy police work that was done. She's on the witness stand, and this is the first time she's recounting this story.
So did she never talk to the police, or she never told them that?
She must have talked to the police in some capacity. I'm not positive, but this is the first time that she said that she saw the blob.
Wow. Firefighter Katie McLaughlin was accused of perjury by the defense. Katie was one of the first responders at the crime scene. She testified at the trial that she and Colin Albert were acquaintances, but not really friends, although they'd grown up together and had mutual friends. Several group photos of Katie and Colin were found on Facebook, and the defense questioned Katie's ability to remain neutral in her testimony. This case is so complicated because so many parties involved were related or born and raised in the Canton, Massachusetts area, and many have a background in law enforcement.
Colin Albert is the daughter of Brian and Nicole, the homeowners of 34 Fairview Road.
Okay. Matthew McCabe, husband of Jen, testified to seeing a black SUV approach the Alberts' house on the night in question, but never saw anyone get out. He assumed it was Karen and John. He saw the SUV move up the road a bit near the flagpole and then later noticed it was gone but saw tire tracks in the snow. 2 detectives admitted they initially didn't see fragments of a broken taillight at the scene. In total, 45 pieces of taillight were collected on 4 separate occasions. A crash reconstructionist testified that they believed that John's injuries were consistent with being hit by an SUV going 24 miles per hour. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in part 1 we talked about the fact that her Lexus data showed that she had gone backwards at 25 miles per hour, right?
She, I believe, went in reverse for 60 feet at 24.2 miles per hour.
Okay. The medical examiner testified that John's injuries could have been caused by a large dog.
Could have been.
That surprises me a little bit that the medical examiner would say that.
It wasn't in the autopsy, but during their cross-examination that they did say that.
Yeah. Brian Higgins testified that he got rid of his cell phone after he learned that his number was public when a target in an investigation he was working on called him. This happened in July 2022, but Brian didn't purchase a new phone until September 2022, the day before he received the order to hand over his phone to law enforcement. He claimed his phone was old and beaten up and he needed a new one. He claimed that he was driving near a military base in Cape Cod and threw the cell phone and corresponding SIM card he destroyed into a dumpster.
As one does.
Of course. He didn't transfer data from the old phone to the new phone, including personal pictures. On the witness stand, Brian read the flirtatious text messages between Karen and him. If you recall, I think it was in part 1, we talked about the fact that Karen and Brian had a little flirtation and shared a kiss, right?
2 weeks before John's death, Brian had come over to John's house to watch a football game. I think the date was January 15th. And I think the text messages that we're going to read take place over like a 10-day period. And they start, I believe, the night of the football game. So Karen's texting him while he's sitting there watching the game with John.
Okay.
You're hot.
Are you serious or messing with me?
No, I'm serious.
Feeling is mutual. Is that bad?
Are you okay driving? You don't want to stay here?
I wish. I think you're messing with me.
Why do you think that?
Because this is so out of left field. Where did these feelings come from?
I just think you're like me.
Meaning?
Do you have your own kids?
I have no kids. How am I like you? Hello?
Aren't we alike?
I think so. Shoot straight with me.
I told you, I just think we're alike, right?
Yes, agree. Now what?
I don't know.
Shouldn't you know?
Do you like me?
Yes, from jump.
When was jump?
First time I saw you. When were you interested?
I don't know, you're just my type.
You think you can handle me? I thought you were happy.
How do you know if I'm happy?
I've always thought that about you.
What?
That you're hot, smart, witty, but didn't think you were interested.
Witty?
Yes, meaning quick with a response. Tell me why you got my number and reached out to me.
Just thought we were the same, from the same neighborhood.
I'm glad I stopped by. I should have come earlier. Do you really live in Mansfield?
Yeah, I was basically begging you to.
You don't have to beg.
Huh?
I will give you whatever you want. How are you texting right now? Ugh, leave me hanging.
No.
Ball's in your court.
What do you want?
Loaded question. What do you want?
I asked you.
Nope, you initiated this. Are you breaking up or staying together?
I don't know. He hooked up with another girl on vacation. I am very close to his niece. It's a very fucked up situation.
When was that, and how did you find out they hooked up? I don't want to complicate your situation.
We went away for New Year's, the four of us. I put the kids to bed and found him in the lobby of our hotel all over one of our friends. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay, just to break in for a second. Remember, like, nothing probably happened, and Karen even apologized and ended up paying for the woman's hotel room.
Yeah, he was hugging this
a
woman.
friend,
Yeah.
and her boyfriend was with him, so...
It does matter. Did they bang?
Does that matter?
Sorry, I was just asking. I was just trying to figure shit out.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay, I won't ask again.
I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Okay, hear you loud and clear, Karen.
We did kiss earlier, no?
I think you initiated that. No?
Yep. Do I owe you an apology?
Oh my God, no. Why are you being sensitive?
What do you want from me?
What's on the table?
What do you want ideally?
The real deal.
I'm not abnormally sensitive.
Aw, I won't be so hard on you.
Oh my God, you're not. You called me trouble. That makes me sound bad.
I was just playing with you.
You weren't, but that's okay. Like I said earlier, these texts happened like over 7 to 10 days. They seem to end about January 23rd, and Karen ghosted Brian.
Oh, right. You said that. Yeah.
On January 29th, she texted Brian only, "John died." Brian said the whole experience was confusing for him. One night, Karen showed up at his place, and he claims nothing happened. She didn't stay long, and the whole incident had a very weird vibe, is what he said. So he had to read a lot of these text messages at trial, and I just think that must have been
A little uncomfortable.
super awkward for everyone involved. We'll be right back after a break. Massachusetts State Trooper Michael Proctor spent 2 days on the witness stand. He was a gift to the defense. On day 23 of the trial, Proctor was forced to read some of his controversial text messages aloud in court.
So these came from me. From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. CUNT.
Objection. So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Cunt. Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass. I also respond with, she's got a leaky balloon knot, leaks poo.
And what, if anything, is that in reference to?
To misread some medical conditions there. If you like women who shit themselves.
Again, sir, what is it that you're referring to there?
Again, a regrettable comment I made about Miss Reed's medical condition. I respond, said the Alberts beat the shit out of O'Keefe, left him for dead, and that's why her taillight was cracked. She's gross. Trooper DeChico, oh, fuck her, bitch. And I conducted multiple interviews.
Speak up.
Conducted multiple interviews. We knew these came from me. Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly hate him.
What did you write after you talked about going through the, quote, retarded client's phone?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No nude so far.
No nudes so far, correct?
Correct.
And you said that to your bosses.
Yes, sir.
Few regrettable comments in there.
He's vile.
Disgusting.
I'm glad the judge made him read them out loud and own up to his words. He should have to have his comments tattooed to his forehead or something. He acknowledged the unprofessional nature of his text, but was adamant that his conduct did not impede the investigation. He said on the witness stand, quote, "Unprofessional and regrettable comments are something I am not proud and I shouldn't have wrote in private or any type of setting. Had zero impact on the facts and evidence and integrity of the investigation." Brian Albert's brother, Chris, is married to Julie Albert. Remember, Chris owns the pizza shop and he's the town selectman.
Oh, right.
Julie is close friends with Courtney Proctor, Trooper Proctor's sister. Julie was the daycare provider for Courtney's children, so those are pretty close ties.
Yeah.
Courtney sent a text to her brother after she'd spoken to Julie early in the investigation that said, quote, "When this is all over, she wants to get you a thank you gift." He replied, "Get Elizabeth one," referring to his wife, who'd been solo parenting since he'd been leading the investigation. He said on the witness stand, "I have never received a gift. I never asked for a gift. My wife never received a gift. My wife never asked for a gift." And I think that he had called Julie because she was actually going to maybe be the daycare provider for his children as well.
Okay. You just would want to avoid any appearance of impropriety in the position that he is in. I just don't get it.
Courtney Proctor and Julie Albert talked 67 times between February 1st, 2022 and September 2022. Julie said she didn't remember what they talked about, but she talks a lot, and that was an unusual amount for her. This next part is very complicated and confusing, and you helped me flesh it out a little bit.
Yes, and I will do my best to try to elaborate, but it is very confusing.
And it could be the whole case, in my opinion. Jennifer McCabe spent 3 days testifying. Jennifer's sister, Nicole, is married to Brian Albert. I'm sorry I keep repeating these relationships, but I think it's really confusing, and I just want to help everyone. The after party was at Nicole and Brian's house. Jennifer is also friends with Courtney Proctor, Officer Michael Proctor's sister. She was a fiery witness. When she was interviewed by police, she recalled that Karen said, "Did I hit him?" when they found John lying in Brian's yard. But during the trial, Jennifer testified that Karen said, "I hit him." And that is the first time that people heard this version of events from her. It's a subtle difference, but did I hit him or I hit him?
Important.
Jennifer was questioned about 7 unanswered calls from her phone to John O'Keefe's phone on January 29th from 12:29 to 12:50. The calls were later deleted from her call log. She claimed they were butt dials and had no recollection of deleting the calls. A data expert at the trial said there was no evidence of deletions. A different expert said that the cookies were deleted, not the searches. So I don't think these calls that she said were butt dials, I don't think these really implicate her.
No, because we noticed she called him looking for, like, where are you at, right? Are you here? So it seems
I don't know
like,
why she wouldn't just say, "Oh yeah, I was just worried about him. He hadn't showed up at the house yet."
Yeah, it's very strange.
Alan Jackson confronted Jen McCabe with data from Celebrite, a company that forensically searches electronic devices. Jackson showed a log file entry that seemed to indicate that Jen searched Haas, H-O-S, long to die in cold, Haas, presumably a typo for how, at 2:27 a.m. Jen said that she did not make the search at this time. She claimed that she made the search at 6:24 a.m. after she and Karen discovered John's body. Jen said Karen asked her to Google hypothermia, how long does it take to die in the cold? Because it was cold outside and her hands were shaking, she mistyped. There was another search at 6:24 a.m., how long TI die in CIKD, with different typos. Jen said she re-entered the search because of the typos. And this is a critical part of the case because if Jen did search how long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m., that changes everything. And I think that's the whole case if that search did happen, right? Because she gets home, she's laying in bed, she's like, "Oh my God, what happened? What did we do? How long is it going to take him to die?"
Right.
So Jen's explanation was when they got home from the party at 2:27 a.m., she was thinking about her daughter's new basketball team. Her daughter is in high school and she was invited to join this new team. And she was Googling about the basketball team.
Right.
And she didn't search for anything else at 2:27 a.m.
According to her.
According to her. The prosecution's forensic experts say that the 2:27 a.m. timestamp for that search is inaccurate because it was from a log file that shows the last time the browser tab was viewed, not the actual time of the search itself. In other words, I'm sorry, this is just really confusing.
Yeah.
In other words, if she viewed the browser tab at 2:27 a.m. when making the basketball search, then pulled up the same browser tab again at 6:24 a.m. to make the how long to die in cold search, the log file would show the last time the tab was viewed, in this case, 2:27 a.m. Here's a clip from the defense questioning of Jen McCabe.
Ms. McCabe, the reason you deleted that 2:27 a.m. call is because you realized that if you were caught Googling how long it takes for a person to die in the cold 3.5 hours before John's body was found, that would incriminate you, wouldn't it?
Objection.
The objection sustained.
Did you delete that search because you knew that you would be implicated in John O'Keefe's death if that search was found on your phone?
Objection.
Could you answer that, please?
I did not delete that search. I never made that search at 2:23. I never would have left John O'Keefe out in the cold to die because he was my friend that I loved.
But he's not your family, is he?
Family and friends.
Is he not
Objection.
your...
Sustained.
So I know this stuff is super confusing, and I am not a computer expert by any means. You would think, like with computer data forensics, everything would be very clear and cut and dried. But
We talked about this in the last episode,
did.
where you would think everything is just very objective, like, oh, you searched at this time, and
yeah, but it's so complicated, and I think when people, lawyers and experts try to present it to a jury, it can get very confusing. I reached out to my friend Patrick. So if you are a listener of our podcast, you may know Patrick as my snack consultant, but Patrick is also a technologist.
He's a jack of all trades.
He really is. He's a great guy, and he's been like a chief technology officer. He's actually worked in digital forensics. And so I sent him some of the logs and some of the evidence that came from Celebrite, and he explained it to me, and I think it makes sense. It's going to be hard for me to explain clearly, but essentially the log file that they showed that said 2:27 a.m. she made this search for how long to die in the cold is not the time she made that search. And his view was that they never should have used that log file because that log file doesn't accurately show when someone typed in a search. It showed when the browser was opened. And so if she opened the browser at 2:27,
So you're saying it wasn't valid evidence.
Yes, I'm saying they should have used the event log, which would have showed exactly when she made the search, not the tab history database, which showed when she opened the browser or when she opened the tab. So long story short, in Patrick's opinion, and I trust him on this, he believes that the searches were made at 6:24 a.m., not at 2:27 or a.m. or whatever the times were. And he's pretty confident of that. And he looked through all of the different reports, including the report by the defense expert who said that he believed the searches were done at 2:27 a.m. Patrick believes that the defense expert was not reading that correctly, based on the data that was there.
But Alan Jackson at the trial presented, there were multiple searches, like allegedly if the 2:27 a.m. search happened, Haas long to die in cold, then her next search was how T.I. die in CKLD.
Right.
And then the one after that was Haas long to die in cold. So it almost looked like she wanted to delete that search from 2:27 a.m. She was like, at the crime scene, she was like, oh, I need to delete that and I can search it again so it doesn't look like I searched that in the middle of the night. And then she made a typo again. And then she was like, oh, I need to make the same typo. So she had searched like the same thing 3 times. And Alan Jackson just harped on her over and over about that. Like, why did you search for the same thing at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m.?
Right. So what I believe from what I've been able to understand is she made 2 searches, one at 6:23 and 50 seconds or whatever. That was the how TI search. Then she made the other one very shortly after that, which was the Haas HOS to die. Now I don't know. For me, I can't explain exactly why that second search is the one that showed up in the browser tab at 2:27 a.m. So
to me, that's kind of confusing because you would think that the first search
one,
that she made would have been the one that showed up at 2:27 a.m.
Yes, I agree. I don't have an explanation for that.
Well, thank you for trying to explain it. And a huge thanks to Patrick, who is always there to support us and help us out when needed.
Super helpful.
But it's just super confusing.
Oh, it totally is. And I can completely understand if you're on a jury and you're hearing these explanations from these experts and,
it just doesn't.
How can you make heads or tails
It's just
of it?
not logical.
Right.
Because you're like, at my computer. Like I searched, and you would think that the search would show up at the time that you search it.
Yeah, one would think.
All right, we're going to try to move on from that. The prosecution called a snowplow driver named Lucky who had plowed in front of the Alberts' home. He said he did not see a body in front of their house on the night of January 29th. However, he did see a Ford Edge. We talked about this a little bit ago. And being a snowplow driver, I think you have a pretty good vantage point. You're up a little higher. You've got some bright lights.
Right.
Here's Turtle Boy talking about the snowplow evidence.
And by the way, Vinny, I was there to find out who plowed Fairview Road the night of the morning of January 29th, 2022, because they never interviewed the plow driver. And guess what? 2 months later, I found that driver. His name is Brian Lucky Loughran. He plowed Fairview Road at 2:30 in the morning. He went right by the house, and John O'Keefe's body was not on the front lawn. He also told me in an exclusive interview that he saw a Ford Edge parked directly next to where John O'Keefe's body would be discovered 3 hours later. And he had been interviewed by the FBI about that. And why didn't the state police find this guy? Why didn't they track this guy down? Because they didn't want to track him down. Because his information, his testimony proved that John O'Keefe was not killed by Karen Reed at 12:30 because he was not on that lawn at 2:30. And since breaking this story in August of 2022, the state police to this day have done zero work to find out who was driving that Ford Edge parked right next to John O'Keefe's body at 3 in the morning. You know why, Vinny? Because they're too busy calling up ex-girlfriends of mine and someone named Natalie and finding out how many times I talked to Karen Reed as if that matters. Why don't they find out who's driving that Ford Edge? Don't they want to know who killed a Boston police officer? Because it sure as heck wasn't Karen Reed, because there was nobody on the lawn at 2:30. That's what I was doing in that clip. Actual journalism that no other reporter is willing to do, and no police in this case are willing to do.
He's very passionate about this case.
I'll say.
And he does know his stuff.
That seems strange that the prosecution would have called Lucky, because it seems like
He'd be a defense
his testimony
witness.
was more in support of the defense. Yeah.
Sometimes the prosecution will call a witness that seems more like they're a defense witness to
just to head off anything that they foresee.
Yes.
Not to question Lucky's account of what happened, but I do wonder how easy it would be to remember exactly. I know there's a flagpole and maybe that's a landmark, but how easy it would remember to say, I didn't see a body in this exact spot and I saw a car in this exact spot if you're driving around all these streets at night.
I don't know if he was local, but I think he was familiar with the Alberts home, and he just said, I'd never seen that Ford Edge there before.
Okay.
Allegedly, Colin Albert may have driven a Ford Edge.
Okay.
The defense only had 2 days of testimony, and they only called 6 witnesses. Their case hinged on one or more of the men at the Albert home beating John O'Keefe nearly to death and throwing him out into the snow to die. Earlier in the night at the Waterfall Bar, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were seen play fighting, and the defense alleged that they were warming up for later.
Okay.
So they really wanted to believe that this was premeditated, and whatever you think in this case, I don't think you can say that it was premeditated.
I sure wouldn't think so.
The defense called a forensic pathologist who believed the scratches from John's arm could have been caused by a dog, 2 crime scene reconstructionists who didn't believe John's injuries were consistent with being hit by a car. One testified that the broken taillight was not consistent with the damage that would be caused by a human body part coming into contact with it. They also called Richard Green, an expert in digital forensics, and he did believe that John McCabe searched how long to die in the cold at 2:27 a.m. Dr. Marie Russell testified that she detected combinations of bite marks and scratches on the arm and puncture wounds on John's shirt. She said that she saw parallel wounds on his arm that could have been caused by scratches or teeth. She said she did not believe he was hit by a car. It's just so hard in these trials when the information of the expert witnesses have such
completely opposite testimony.
Yeah, I
really
wanted to
is.
find a clip where you could see like the 2 different testimonies side by side, but it's really frustrating, and it's, as a juror, it must be so hard to make heads or tails of it.
Right.
Like, you just have to pick a fighter.
Yeah.
Who Karen Reed did not testify on her own behalf at the trial.
Some have called Karen Reed out for her behavior during the trial, She had been seen making faces, winking at cameras, and snacking. Why are they denigrating snacking?
I know. It's an outrage.
She has been criticized for the length of her skirts and the cost of her clothing. Eagle-eyed observers noted one of her jackets was a Veronica Beard piece that retails for $695. If you didn't know what Karen looked like, it would be hard to discern her from her defense team. She remained calm and professional, rarely showing emotion during the trial. Although she did seem to react to certain witnesses and sometimes smirked when they testified. The jury began deliberations on Tuesday, June 25th. Less than 10% of juries deadlock, according to the Court Statistics Project. Before lunch on Friday, June 28th, the fourth day of deliberations, the jury sent a note to the judge and told her that they were unable to reach a unanimous verdict. The judge told them they hadn't deliberated long enough to declare a deadlock and asked them to keep working after lunch. At the end of the day Friday, they still hadn't reached a consensus. On Monday morning, July 1st, the jury again reached out to the judge and said, quote, "We are deeply divided by fundamental differences in our opinions and state of mind. The divergence in our views are not rooted in a lack of understanding or effort, but deeply held convictions that each of us carry, ultimately leading to a point where consensus is unattainable," end quote.
That's quite a That's quite a statement, right?
Yeah.
I was impressed by the way it was worded.
Judge Cannone again reminded them of the importance of working together to reach a verdict. Cannone told them to keep deliberating under a last resort measure called a Tui-Rodriguez instruction, also known as the Allen charge in some jurisdictions. It is a directive given by a judge to a deadlocked jury to encourage them to continue deliberating until they reach a verdict. It reminds the jurors that they are in a unique position and are the people best equipped to decide the case. The instruction emphasizes the importance of reaching a unanimous decision and encourages jurors to listen to each other's viewpoints and re-examine their own positions while maintaining their honest convictions. This instruction aims to prevent a mistrial by promoting further discussion and consideration among the jurors.
It's kind of wild to me because, they've been doing this for days and days, and I'm sure they did everything in their power to reach a verdict, and so the judge keeps telling them, nope, go back.
Keep trying.
Go back to your room.
The jury returned in the early afternoon and again declared that they were stuck.
Despite our rigorous efforts, we continue to find ourselves at an impasse. Our perspectives on the evidence are starkly divided. Some members of the jury firmly believe that the evidence surpasses the burden of proof, establishing the elements of the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Conversely, others find the evidence fails to meet this standard and does not sufficiently establish the necessary elements of the charges. The deep division is not due to a lack of effort or diligence, but rather a sincere adherence to our individual principles and moral convictions. To continue to deliberate would be futile and only serve to force us to compromise these deeply held beliefs. I'm not going to do that to you folks. Your service is complete. I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
Oh, that's got to be so frustrating for prosecutors, especially after all the work they put in. And
well, for everyone.
Yeah.
And for the defendant who has paid a lot of money for her defense.
True. Good point. It's unclear at this time whether prosecutors will retry the case against Karen Reed. A hearing will be held on July 22nd, which is 2 days from the time we're actually recording this, but will have passed by the time you're most likely listening to this. So we will come back and do a quick update and insert it here into
I was like the timing,
episode.
like, oh, we're so close, but we don't know what's going to happen yet.
It'll be really interesting to see what they decide, though. After the mistrial was declared, Paul O'Keefe, John's brother, told WBZ-TV, quote, "Throughout the trial, she liked to turn and look at me and smirk. She has never once made eye contact with my wife, Erin. So when the mistrial was announced, she turned and looked right at Erin and gave her a smirk," end quote. After the mistrial was declared, Paul told Karen, quote, "You're not done yet," unquote.
Prior to John's death, I believe John's family liked Karen quite a bit, and they were all pretty tight.
Yeah.
Well, rest in peace, John O'Keefe. John was a beloved son, brother, uncle, and father. John's friends and family have taken to buying a Bud Light for him when they go out to remember him. His absence is a gaping hole to his family, especially Kaylee and Patrick, who have now lost 3 of the most important people in their life. John gave the eulogy at his sister's funeral, and referring to her children, he said, quote, "We'll take it from here." His brother repeated the same words at John's funeral. So we send our thoughts and love to Kaylee and Patrick. On Monday, July 1st, hours after the mistrial was announced, Michael Proctor was, quote, relieved of his duties at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office and was reassigned to Troop H.
What does that mean?
It must be hell, right?
That sounds bad, whatever it is.
Interim State Police Superintendent Colonel John Maughan released the following statement. Quote, upon learning today's result, the department took immediate action to relieve Trooper Michael Proctor of duty and formally transfer him out of Norfolk County District Attorney's Office State Police Detectives Unit. This follows our previous decision to open an internal affairs investigation after information about serious misconduct emerged in testimony at the trial. The investigation is ongoing, end quote.
Wow.
I'm sure that Proctor is the only bad apple.
Oh, are you?
Right?
Yeah, likely not. But I hope Troop H is a miserable place because he seems like a, yeah.
Proctor was forced to relinquish his badge, gun, and uniforms. 1 week after the trial, after a closed-door disciplinary hearing, he was suspended without pay while the investigation continues, which is a big deal because a lot of times officers are given their pay.
Right.
State Police Association of Massachusetts President Brian Williams said in regards to Proctor's suspension, quote, we would like to reiterate that unless the department's ongoing investigation proves otherwise, yesterday's action have no relationship to salacious allegations of cover-ups, collusions, or conspiracies offered by the defense, end quote. He said Proctor was suspended because of the content of his text messages, not his work on the investigation.
It's hard to separate those things out, isn't it?
Doesn't that make you so mad?
Yeah.
Kevin Albert, another brother of Brian Albert's that we haven't talked about yet, also a police officer, was placed on paid administrative leave in June 2024. His actions in the Karen Reed case are under review by independent investigation. I'm not really sure what he did. Dateline was at the trial, of course. Dennis Murphy interviewed Karen, and it was played on the Today Show. We're not going to play it, but you can find that online. That should be out pretty soon. On Friday, July 19th, Netflix announced a new 3-part docuseries about the case. Again, not surprising.
Yeah, that's quick, though.
There's going to be a lot. Well, I'm not saying it's going to be released anytime soon.
But the fact that they announced it already is even quick.
There will likely be, Lifetime movies and books. And at this point, there are no restrictions to Karen Reed making money from the case. And Turtle Boy has also been approached by Netflix. I mean, he is a really interesting character. And whether you agree with him or not, he's very well spoken and he's smart. And,
and like you said earlier, he's brought a lot of attention to this case and really raised the visibility of it, right?
Did I mention he's handsome too? I'm afraid he and his followers are going to come for us. An April article in the Boston Globe revealed that John's parents have custody of Kaylee and Patrick at this time. I'm not sure if that will change or not. On July 17th, Karen put her Mansfield, Massachusetts home up for sale. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home, 2,500 square feet for, I'm obsessed with real estate.
Oh, yeah, I know how you love
for $850,000. I think I put a link in our show notes if you want to see Karen's house. Lovely house. I just wanted to point out that there's a lot of money to be made in true crime.
There is?
And for everyone.
Okay.
For some people, like if we became high profile like Turtle Boy, we'd probably be raking in. We might be getting a Lexus.
Well, that's good to know.
But there's a lot of money to be made. And with a high profile case like Karen Reed, exponentially so. There is a lot of interest, and content creators are paid by clicks, views, and downloads. A popular TikTok, YouTube, or podcast can become viral. As consumers, we need to be cautious of content creators' intent.
Yeah.
A conspiracy theory is much more titillating than a cut and dry solved case. Everyone makes a lot more money in a case like Karen Reed's, and it behooves the creators to feed conspiracy theories.
That's very well said, and I think it's a really, really important point to make.
And we're making money. I mean, We have not yet bought we did buy a Peloton.
We did buy a Peloton, yes.
But
next best thing to a Lexus.
And we're guilty of it too, to a certain extent.
Sure.
We're doing the Karen Reed trial because we know people will want to listen to it,
Right.
and it will get us more clicks and downloads. So I don't want to pretend like we're above it, because we're not.
Right.
But we're also, I think our listeners they know that we try our best to be objective and ethical, and
Yeah, we really try hard to be authentic and be who we are, which is, I think, by both of our natures, we are both tried really hard to be objective and not jump to conclusions.
But I do especially me, I'm pretty emotional. And if I think, the husband did it, I'm not afraid to say it. But we do our best. That's all I'm trying to say. But, I think people are smart and they can make their own decisions. But I just wanted to put that in there. On Monday, July 8th, Karen Reed's lawyers moved to have 2 of the 3 charges against her dropped after learning that during their deliberation, the jury had unanimously found her innocent on 2 of the charges, second-degree murder and leaving the scene of a deadly accident. In the motion, they argued that if she were tried for the 2 charges again, it would violate double jeopardy laws. The 3rd charge, manslaughter while operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol, was the charge that the jury was deadlocked over.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, and I think they came to the 2 conclusions fairly quickly. 3 jurors, actually it might be 5 now because I wrote this a while back. I think it's 5. 5 jurors in the case contacted Karen Reed's lawyers to inform them of the jury's findings. The jurors were frustrated that their findings were not made public, and they didn't want Karen to be retried on the 2 counts that they'd unanimously found her innocent of.
Wow.
In response, the Norfolk District Attorney's Office said in a statement they are, quote, examining the motion in anticipation of filing a response. We look forward to picking a new trial date on July 22nd. According to NBC 10 Boston, they say the defense's arguments are based on, quote, hearsay, conjecture, and legally inappropriate reliance as to the substance of jury deliberations. The prosecutors call Karen's lawyers' claims that the jury ever reached any unanimous decision on any of the charges unsubstantiated and sensational, and they plan to file a response soon. And I believe at this point they are saying that they are going to retry the case.
Wow, interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the ruling is on that, because I can sort of see both sides that, yeah, it's based on hearsay, but still, if the jurors were all unanimous,
I don't think it's worth the cost and the emotion.
Yeah. Well, I think, even before learning this news, my feeling was that second-degree murder didn't seem to make sense.
Why the heck did this go to trial in the first place, really?
Involuntary manslaughter, I could see that being a good question, but second-degree murder, no.
So fast forward 3 weeks. It's Sunday, August 4th, and we recorded the Karen Reed episodes 3 weeks ago. And in that time, on Monday, July 22nd, 3 weeks after the mistrial was declared, Judge Beverly Canone scheduled January 14th, 2025 for a pre-trial conference and January 27th, 2025 as a new trial date. The hearing lasted less than 5 minutes, so they're going to go ahead and retry her.
Wow, I'm a little surprised.
On August 9th, the judge will hear the defense's motion to dismiss some of the charges against Karen Reed, the 2 charges that several jurors came forward to notify the defense that they were unanimous on, second-degree murder and leaving the scene of a fatal accident. I've since learned, when the jury goes into the jury room to start making their deliberations, they take an initial vote.
Right.
The initial vote, I think, on the 2 charges that they were unanimous on were unanimous from the beginning. And the charge of manslaughter was 6-6 initially, then it was 8-4, and then ultimately 9-3.
In favor of?
In favor of not guilty.
Okay.
Karen Reed's defense attorney, Alan Jackson, wrote in court documents, quote, there was no manifest necessity for a mistrial as to those counts, and therefore the double jeopardy protections of the federal and state constitutions require that those counts not be tried. It's very tricky, and I don't know if there's a lot of precedent on a case like this. I've heard legal scholars say that they probably will not dismiss those charges, that they will go ahead and try them again. But it's such a costly trial.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people once again gathered around the courthouse in support of Karen, and it appears that Massachusetts attorney David Giannetti and high-profile attorney Alan Jackson will continue to represent Karen Reed.
Wow, it's going to be such a costly trial, and I think the odds of them getting a conviction it's not great.
They can't get rid of Michael Proctor.
No.
He's always going to be an issue in this case moving forward. And sadly, the people of Canton are still very divided. I heard that some people that were supporters of Karen Reed had like balloons filled with bleach like thrown onto their yards and into their gardens. And it's just very divided. It's really tragic.
Yeah, for sure.
I have some questions for you now. Should Karen's trial been moved out of Canton, Massachusetts? And I say that, but it actually was in Dedham, not in Canton, but it's only like, I think 5 to 10 miles away. Should her case been tried?
My
somewhere
opinion
else?
is yes. It just, with all the close relationships and all, it just seems like that would have made sense.
Yeah. Considering her blood and alcohol content, should Karen have been tried for second-degree murder? We kind of talked about this already.
Yeah, I already kind of answered that. In my opinion, no. If she was responsible for killing John, to me, it seems like it was involuntary manslaughter. Like, it probably wasn't premeditated. It probably wasn't planned.
Yeah, if she was blackout drunk, there was no intent there.
Right.
This is conjecture on my part, but Brian Albert said he let Chloe the dog out when they got home from the bar. So, like 12:15-ish. And that's around the time that John and Karen pulled up. So I'm wondering if maybe Chloe could have attacked him.
Maybe.
And he could have hit his head on something.
Yeah, I suppose that's
He was
possible.
found kind of by the curb.
Yeah, I do feel like, you showed me the pictures of his arm, the injuries on his arm, and my first reaction was they didn't look like dog injuries. But the more I looked at it, and knowing that Chloe was a large dog, I could sort of see that it might be caused by a dog. So, yeah, it's an interesting
I'm not a
theory.
dog expert either. I could go either way.
Yeah.
If you were going to intentionally hit someone with a car, wouldn't you hit them head on and not like back up?
Yeah, for sure. But if you're really drunk and you're just acting in the heat of the moment, maybe I could see, just putting it in reverse and hitting the accelerator maybe. But yes, if you were planning on it and you were, trying to intentionally do that, yeah, you wouldn't do it in reverse going 25 miles an hour.
Yeah. Does this case feel like a Martin Scorsese film to you?
It feels a little more like a Dennis Lehane novel, but maybe a Martin Scorsese film based on a Dennis Lehane novel.
Yeah. What is the motive for killing John, whether from Karen or the men?
I mean, boy, it's a good question. I think if Karen did it, I don't think there was a motive. I think it was they were arguing, not an accident, but arguing, heat of the moment, maybe an accident, or maybe just, a sudden like burst of anger or something that caused her to do that. If it was the Alberts, then I really don't know. I mean, we talked about a few little conflicts about, the bottles on the lawn and things like that. And maybe it was Brian Higgins who had the little fling with Karen, right? So, I mean, I suppose there could be something there, but none of those seem like they're a big enough issue to cause someone to, kill someone in that way. It just doesn't make sense.
I did read something about John seeing ring camera footage of Higgins kissing Karen.
Yeah.
But we have the text messages from the morning of his death, and he didn't say anything about it. So I don't think he cared that much.
Yeah.
How much do you think Karen's defense cost?
Oh, I don't know. $500,000?
I think it was at least $1 million.
Really?
I think it was over $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not sure how deals work in Hollywood, but I think she does stand to make some money off the story.
True.
If this whole thing was not a conspiracy and the Albert family and the McCabe's have been put through all of this, I just wanted to say that I think they've suffered and they've been treated really badly, and I do have empathy for them in their situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's your theory?
Okay, so my theory, This is really tough. So let me just first say, I think it's possible for more than one thing to be true. I think it's possible that the cops in this case were corrupt and or incompetent or did shoddy work.
I don't think that is controversial at all.
Okay, but I think it's possible that that is true, and also that Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I had to, so let me also say, secondly, if I was on the jury, I don't think I could have convicted Karen Reed.
Oh, absolutely not.
But
No.
in my heart of hearts, I think that she probably did kill him, maybe accidentally, maybe in a fit of anger. I think that all of the, I think that the testimony of people saying that she said, I hit him or did I hit him, indicate that she felt some guilt around that. The one piece of evidence that to me was pretty compelling that we talked about in the first case, I think you mentioned that the first episode, was that there were microscopic pieces from the taillight found embedded like in his sweatshirt. And to me, that couldn't be unless he was hit by her car. And I don't think you could plant that type of evidence. I think it would be really hard to plant microscopic pieces of a taillight into someone's sweatshirt. So that was the one piece that I think was really compelling. But I think everything else, if I consider it, I think she probably did it, but I don't think I could have convicted her.
Interesting.
What about you?
Oh, my opinion doesn't matter. I agree, actually. I agree with you pretty much 100%. I think that they probably were having an argument. I think their relationship
was very volatile.
Was volatile. They'd gotten along that night, but I think something might have happened at the bar. When like you're at an event, you're at a friend's house or something, and then you leave, and then you kind of have a discussion, and it kind of can go south. Like, I can't believe you did that, or you made me mad.
Oh, yeah.
So it was probably something like that.
Yeah.
And I do think that John could have thrown the cocktail glass at the car and broken the taillight as he exited the vehicle. And
then maybe that pissed her off and she slammed it into reverse and hit him, right?
I don't know. I don't see her doing it intentionally. I think that she likely hit him by mistake.
Yeah, she was pretty drunk though. So even if it was intentional, it might have been intentional, but under the influence of a lot of alcohol.
Right. I mean, she was pretty intoxicated, and so was he.
Right.
So it was just like these two people. No one should have been driving, and I haven't really heard a lot of people talking about this, but I mean, she was very drunk, and she should not have been driving. He shouldn't have been driving either.
Right.
He took an Uber there, so he knew that he was going to be having a good time. But I think drunk driving is a really serious offense, and it's something that I take very seriously, and I know you do too.
Right.
And so that kind of bothers me that no one's talking about this. I have compassion for her, and I don't think she should have been convicted, but she was driving and she was very drunk, and that is a crime.
Yeah. And I think on the other side of it too, when I think about the conspiracy theory or the other theory that, he was beat up by these guys, the thing that I struggle with there is that the number of people that would have to be involved in that conspiracy theory and covering it up, all the people who were at the house that night, the paramedics who said that she said, I hit him or did I hit him, all the police officers who would have to be involved in that. It seems hard to imagine that many people being willing to lie under oath.
I agree with you 100% too. And for like the Alberts to have their children lie on the witness stand under oath and to sign an affidavit saying that John hadn't been in the house that night, I can't see putting your children in that position either.
Right.
So yeah, I agree. I don't think that John entered the home that evening.
Yeah. I will say that I do totally understand all the people who are up in arms and angry about the corruption in the police force, because it is blatant and it is horrible.
I think it's pervasive, and I didn't go into great detail, but there has been a lot of problems all over, but Massachusetts has had a lot of problems with their police forces.
Yeah, so I totally get that.
As a woman, and knowing that many people listen to our podcast, it's incredibly frustrating to see men, especially those in positions of power like the police, who are meant to protect and respect us, still using degrading and derogatory terms for women, dismissing it as locker room talk. This behavior is unacceptable, particularly from those who are supposed to lead by example. Proctor may be portrayed as an outlier, but his actions likely reflect a systemic issue of sexism. While I believe that Karen Reed is likely guilty of accidentally killing John O'Keefe because of her heavy drinking, I understand the overwhelming support she has received from women. Women need to stand together to fight for equal treatment under the law. We must demand better from those in power and continue to support each other as women.
Well said.
Don't get a big head, because I try really hard to keep you humble.
You do.
But I am very lucky to have a partner like you.
Oh, thank you. I think we already established in part 1 that I have a big head, as do you, and both our children.
Well, I didn't mean anatomically, but no, you are an amazing man and a great partner, and you are a champion, not just for me, but for women everywhere.
Oh, thank you.
Are you going to tell me that I'm a champion for all men?
Yeah.
I think most men are like champion for themselves enough.
Yeah, I don't think us men need any more champions. I think we're doing all right.
Well, that was a lot, and if you've made it through all 3 episodes, thank you so much for sticking with us. I hope that was cohesive and made sense. This was kind of a tricky case to put together.
Yeah.
A ton of information.
And very current, too.
And very current, which is tricky.
And the fact that there are so many people out there. We talked about it earlier, but there are so many people out there who are so obsessed with this case that have done super deep dives, and we're not able to do that.
Thank you for making that point. Actually, I did want to kind of talk about that. Like, people have devoted, I mean, I've probably spent, I don't know, 80 hours on this case. I don't know, but a lot of time. I've worked on it for about 3 weeks, and it's been a lot of work.
Yeah.
But you just can't get to everything, and you want to so bad.
Right.
But we do our best. But you and I both tend to be kind of middle of the road people, where some people are like, I'm 100% sure she's innocent,
Right.
and we both kind of tend not to be.
Yeah.
I say that, but not always. Like Barry Morphew, wherever you are, God, I know that you are guilty as sin.
Yeah.
But in general, we try to reserve our judgment.
Yeah.
But
For the most part, I'm not sure about anything in life, pretty much. So
That's how
it's
I
really,
feel too.
It's really hard for me to be that certain about something, especially when I know that there are a bunch of jurors that sat through 30 some days of trial listening to all this stuff, and how
One
can
crazy thing about being a juror too is usually you're allowed to take notes, but you're not. I mean, yeah, I think it was 35 days, but you're not allowed to. You can't see all the exhibits. You can't see all the pictures. You can only see certain things, and a lot of times you have to go to the judge and ask to see things again.
Right.
So to have to keep it all in your head,
Yeah.
it's really challenging to be a juror, especially in a case like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, I wanted to give a shout out to Patrick. We talked about him earlier in the episode. And if you would listen, it was a few episodes ago, I mentioned that Patrick was my snack consultant. It's kind of joking because he and I had been messaging each other, and he had said, if you want, I could do like a cooking thing where I could videotape making the recipe or the snack or whatever. And so I was kind of joking about that. And after that episode aired, he messaged me and he said, "Did you not know that I'm a chef?" And I was like, "No, I didn't actually know
we did
that."
not know.
I mean, I worked with him, and he was like our chief technology
He really
officer.
is a man of all trades.
He is, and I knew he had some retail businesses in Ames, Iowa, which is where he lives, and I knew they were related to like cooking and kitchen things like that, but I didn't know he was a chef. And he actually has a business called The Recipe Ames, so it's therecipeames.com. And this is a business he has. They do like cooking classes, and a lot of it is online, and he does live streams. So if you're interested, check out therecipeames.com.
Yeah, definitely. I want to check it out.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And again, a huge thank you to our Italian friends, Sam and Tim, for the amazing snacks. That was so fun.
That
we loved
was
it. Thank you so
amazing.
much.
Well, thank you again, everyone, for sticking with us. We really appreciate everyone's support. Please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Find us on social media or send us an email at lovemarykill@gmail.com. And please consider supporting us on patreon.com/lovemarykill. One tier, $5 a month for early ad-free access and a monthly bonus episode.
Until next time, don't kill your husband.
And don't kill your wife.